When we talk about IPFS, what do we think about? We think about NFTs and metadata. What if I tell you that it's more than that? What if I tell you that IPFS can be leveraged as a completely decentralized, powerful database that we can use to store any data and build a powerful engine that is going to store every single attribute, every single user info, every single piece of data, completely decentralized and available 24/7. But we need a magical tool. We need a tool that will allow us to maximize the IPFS potential. Let's master Pinata. I know what you're thinking. This is another tutorial on how to leverage IPFS and how to store NFT metadata and pictures. Well, let me tell you, this is a way different from your traditional IPFS tutorial. This tutorial, we are going to build an application that will be completely stored in IPFS. And we are not talking about a simple application. We're going to be building a full application that will allow listings in real estate. And we're going to be able to list properties for sale, and we are going to be able to store pictures and the property details completely in IPFS. We're going to be using IPFS as a database. And yes, this tutorial, after you finish watching this entire tutorial, which by the way is a single video, you are going to know how to leverage IPFS as a database. Yes, this is not just storing files. We can use IPFS as a very powerful database, and it actually compares with some very well-known database out there. The only difference that we have here, this is the only difference, is that the database that we are storing in IPFS is completely decentralized. But in order for us to scale and maximize the potential for IPFS, we need a key tool. And that key tool is Pinata. With Pinata, I can control who can talk to my IPFS gateway. I don't need to rely on nodes, which in this case, if you have seen my previous videos, we have configured IPFS using a local node. Well, in this case, we don't need to worry about local nodes. We don't need to worry about supporting and making sure that the node is online till the application is online. Instead, what we are going to do, we are going to use Pinata to send all the data using API calls. We are going to be talking to Pinata, so then Pinata will allow us to pin files. By the way, that's why it's called Pinata. And we are going to be using Pinata to send all the information and build that database. We are going to learn in this video how to query based on property names, because in Pinata we have some attributes that we need to incorporate into our API calls to make sure that we reference that data to the particular IPFS file, because we're going to be using that metadata to do a find and read that information. We are going to be reading that information from IPFS, but Pinata allows us to index the data so that we can query it more easily. We're going to be using Pinata to not only send the data to IPFS, but to query based on attributes that we will send as the information that we want to tell Pinata, hey, give me this information based on this particular metadata name, for example. And you are going to see this in this tutorial, that we are going to be using IPFS in a very different way as we are all used to. You are going to learn how to incorporate NextJS with IPFS, but do it in a scalable way, not just sending IPFS files and pictures. We are actually going to be using Pinata to also obtain the data that we need and render the information in our front end. After this video, you are going to dominate IPFS. Let's go ahead. Let's make this happen. Let's go ahead and start with a Next.js project. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a new project. Let's type npx create next app, and we will label this Pinata app, okay? Now it's asking, do we want to use TypeScript? We're not going to be running TypeScript on this one. And ESLint, yes. And we want to use the source directory, no. And no experimental app directory. So no, and off we go. Let's wait for that. Cool. Awesome. Now what we need to do, we have to install some dependencies. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to navigate to the folder, cd and Pinata. Perfect. Let me clear so we can see it up here. And then now I have to install. The first dependency that I have to install is Bootstrap. So let's go ahead and install Bootstrap. So I'm going to go to the Bootstrap page, and we got the dependency right here. We'll just going to grab that, enter. We install Bootstrap. Now let's install Axios. Axios is going to be the module that is going to allow us to do the API calls, so then we can interact with Pinata, okay? Cool, Axios has been installed. Now let's go ahead and run the app, and we need to work with Pinata. We are going to head to pinata.cloud, and we will set up the account. I already have my account. I am going to do a quick walkthrough. It's very straightforward. There's no rocket science on this one, okay? So let's go ahead and npm run dev. Cool. Now what I have to do, I'm going to open and make sure that my server is running. So I'm going to type localhost. Well, it looks good. Okay, we're golden here. So when we head into pinata.cloud, you get presented with the homepage. You want to create a new account. We need to create the API keys so that we can do the interaction with Pinata. And we also have to build a gateway. So we have to create a gateway. That is a paid service. So let me break it down. Very simple. So if we go under pricing, right? I am currently subscribed. This is the package that I have is the Picnic. That allows me to do one gateway. So for this demonstration, I can work with that gateway. Obviously, when you are building a more scalable implementation where you are going to be hosting multiple instances and they will be all interacting with, with IPFS files, you want to have multiple gateways. So you have more throughput, or if you have different applications, then you should consider a different tier or a different plan, okay? So that said, I already got my account. So you just go over to sign up, and then you will go over the process. As you can see, I have my account, but let me go ahead and log out and let me show you. So when you sign up, you start with the entire process, right? And once you are done with the entire process, then you will be presented with the front page, okay? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to log in back. Once you get the plan, then under gateway, we create that gateway. I already have one, okay? So when we build that first gateway, I think it's not gonna let me because I have already one. So I'm gonna see here. Actually, I have, let's see, net to dev. Let's see if it allows me to create. Yeah, I reached my gateway count limit, okay? So I am just using this one. I did just deploy that, okay? So what we have to do, when we get that gateway, we set up security. So in the security aspect, you are going to be creating the access tokens. The tokens, this is going to allow you to do the interaction between the application and Pinata. So you need to have a token in order for you to be authenticated and to access the API. All right. And also, if you want to filter to particular IPs that are allowed to hit the gateway, then you can filter here. And as well as you can send a particular header with your request, and you can specify what is allowed to hit your gateway. Okay, so it's very secure. It allows you to secure and restrict access. So it's very fine grained. Now, if we head under developer, so over developers, we got the API keys. So there's two things. There is the gateway, right? So the gateway will allow us to search and to read data from IPFS. The API keys will allow us to pin data into IPFS, or in this case, into Pinata, which Pinata will pin or send the data to IPFS. When you create a new key, that key, you need to set some properties. So let's build a key. You can see I already got a couple of keys, so I'm going to build a new one, right? If you make this an admin key, then by default, everything that is set as the options that you are going to access in the API are all allowed. So in my case, I want to be a little bit more specific. I am going to be enabling API endpoint access into the following features, or at least the functionality. So in this case, I am going to be enabling hash metadata. We are going to also be enabling pin file to IPFS. Okay, pin file to IPFS will allow me to send the file to IPFS, or in this case to Pinata. And then we also want to do JSON to IPFS. The difference between JSON and file is when we upload a file such as a picture. That's one example of a file, where in JSON, we are talking about a particular JSON structure. So the JSON format structure is going to be text, but it's going to be formatted in JSON, where you're going to have properties and you're going to have keys, etc. You are going to see this, don't worry. Okay, and once we're done with that, then we need to make sure that we can do pin list. So pin list will allow me to do the query. Okay, so pull data based on a particular attribute. Okay, so I need to make sure that pin list is enabled, and we are going to build a function for that. Okay, and in this case, I am not going to be working with pinning services, so this should be good. So pin list, and we want to enable the three options that we see right here. Okay, and let's call this Pinata app. Okay, let's create the key, and right here you can see that this is the key that we generated. So what I'm going to do, I am going to copy all of it, and we are going to head into Visual Studio Code, and we will open, first of all, the working folder. Again, I am going to build this in the front end, but ideally you don't want to have the keys in the front end. You want to have this in the back end, and you want to have the functions that are going to talk to Pinata using the back end. Okay, cool. So what I'm going to do, since I copied the keys, I am going to create a new folder, right? So let's create a new folder, and this folder, it's going to be called components. Okay, new file, and let's call this config.js. Okay, so basically this is the file that is going to hold all the Pinata keys. So all the Pinata keys will be saved here. So what I'm going to do, I am going to create a comment. Let's open the comment, and let's say API info, and we are just going to close here. Cool, and now we can safely paste the information right here. And let's go back. Okay, so we got all the information that we need. Cool. Awesome. So now we can build upon that, right? Cool. So I'm going to Control S. Now what I have to do, go back. Now that we copy all this, now I know that I can use this key that I just generated to interact with the API portion so that we can send files and such, right? Now I need another key, but this key is to interact with the gateway, to read to the gateway. So what I'm going to do, I am going to do a JSON web token, a JWT. Basically, it's just going to be generated here. So I'm going to create a key, and we have the new key right here. So I'm going to copy it. I already did one, but for this demonstration, let's do a brand new one. Okay. So I'm going to copy the key, and now I am going to head back into the config.js. Remember, the documentation is very important. So what I got to do here, I am going to say gateway, and then JWT, and we'll paste that key. Okay. Now, as a matter of fact, this should be API. Okay. And then this will be Pinata gateway. Cool. Awesome. All right. Now we have all the information that we need to do the interaction. Let's build the config, and then let's build the front end. Let's work with the front end. But first, now that we are in the config.js, let's go ahead and build the information, or build the constants that we need to export so that we can make the API calls. Okay. Okay. So the first thing that I need to export, let's export constant API key. Okay. And we're just going to say here, and we are going to grab this value. You see how cool this is? Like, you have everything documented, everything, it's easier. Okay, so export constant, and now we are going to call this API secret. We're going to say secret, okay? And cool, so we don't need to work with the JWT for the API. I just copied everything, okay? But with those two, we can definitely make the calls, okay? We can send the data to IPFS. So what I have to do now, I am going to be export constant, and this will be the gateway JWT. This is the web token, okay? So now I am going to copy this, go here, and I'm going to paste it here. Okay, now we have the 3 keys that we need to be interacting with. I want to make the functions as clean as possible, which means that I am going to be reusing some objects. And this is why I'm building the config file, because from here I can call those objects into my functions, okay? So what I have to do, I'm going to do export constant, and then now I am going to say, let's say IPFS gateway, right? And this will be my gateway address, okay? So I'm just going to bring that gateway address here. Let's go here. And my gateway address is going to be this one right here at the end. So we'll just copy this. This will just append this, and you're going to see why am I doing this. But what I want to do is I want to separate the gateway name from the root domain name. Okay, cool. So we got the gateway. Perfect. Okay, awesome. Now we need to be sending to Pinata, we have to be sending some headers. Some headers is basically an information that the API should be expecting in order for us to do the interaction. Okay, so what I have to do, I have to export another constant, and let's call this the read header. Okay, you are going to have a header, right? This will be to read, or in this case, this will be used with the gateway to read data from IPFS, or in this case, from Pinata. Okay. So what I got to do, I'm going to open the brackets and close the brackets, and I'm just going to send a header. This is for API calls. I'm just going to say content type, just lowercase. And we are going to say, this is an application JSON. So basically, I am expecting that type of information from the call. And that should be it. Okay, awesome. Now we are going to do another one, export constant, and this will be to get data. So I am going to explain the difference between the two, because this is to get the IPFS CID. The CID is the hash that gets generated when you send a file to IPFS or you pin a file to IPFS. So it generates a CID. With that CID, I can then find the information, or in this case, the data. So we first have to get the CID so then we can read the data. You see where I'm going? So that's why I'm going to build 2 different constants, because there's different attributes that I got to send here, okay? So here, because we need to actually work with the gateway, we are going to say headers, okay? And inside the headers, I need to pass 2 values. I got to pass Pinata API key, okay? And what's the value? The API key that we just stored here, okay? So this will be API key, okay? And I have to pass Pinata secret API key, which is the second value right here. So this will be API secret, okay? Cool, awesome, we're done here. Now, I did that get header. We need to do a third one. Export constant, send header. Okay, constant, send JSON header. Okay, cool. With this, we are going to be sending that JSON file to IPFS, because we're going to be generating the JSON file or the JSON data with NextJS. When the user provides the property information, we are going to be asking, how many floors, how many rooms, how many beds, how many bathrooms, all the information regarding that property. We have to build that and package that into a JSON formatted file, or at least data package, right? And this is being sent using this particular header. We have to tell to Pinata that I am going to be pinning a JSON file, okay? With that said, I need to also do this because it's expecting me to provide the key, so might as well copy this. I need one extra item. I need to make sure that I label content type, and then this is expected to be application JSON. Okay, cool. There we go. Awesome. So that looks good. Cool. So we're done with all the information that will allow us to talk to Pinata. If you're wondering, how did I get this value? How did I get all this information? Pinata documentation. Let's go real quick. So we go here. We are going to hover over resources, and we are going to click documentation. From here, literally all you can think of. You have the Pinata API, then you can actually see all the information to do the pinning or interact with the API, or in this case, with the gateway. Everything that I'm going to be teaching, you can find this information here, okay? Cool. So now what I got to do, we're done with this. Let's build the front end, okay? Let's go ahead and build the front end. Now let's go ahead and work with Bootstrap. What I'm going to do, I am going to be building the list property page. I am going to show you the working example that we will be building, so then you have an idea, okay? So let me take a look at this. Okay, it's loading the information. I am going to click on list property. So let's talk about what we are going to do. We are going to be building a page that users can list their property for sale. This includes adding the property name, or at least a title, a catchy title, for marketing purposes, the asking price, the year that was built, HOA, all the information regarding a property that you want to sell. We are going to provide this here. We are going to catch all this information, and we will send all this text to IPFS, and we have to build a JSON format file that will be indexed with Pinata. So with Pinata, we are going to get the information back once we read the data in the front page. The front page is going to be displaying every single listing that we have created in the listing for sale section, okay? So once we are done with this, we can confirm that the main page is displaying the data because we're getting the information from Pinata, okay? So let's go ahead and do this. So we're going to be building this page first, and then we will go ahead and build the front page, okay? Cool. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead under pages, I'm gonna make a file. Let's call this list, because this will be the listing page. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to copy and paste the front end for the listing. I'm just going to go briefly and we'll go from there, okay? So I'm going to call this export default function list, okay? And we will open and close. And at the end, we have to return. What are we going to return? The actual HTML, right? Okay. So let's go ahead. I'm going to copy the whole syntax and we'll go from there. And I am going to press here and I'm going to send this right here. Okay, awesome. Let's go over the front end. So basically what this is going to do, it's going to be displaying, the property info. It's going to have the listing title. You can see that we have listing title, and then we are going to be asking for the price of the property, the year that was built, etc. So we should be obtaining this from an input box. Okay, I'm going to show you that in the front end, how that looks. Okay, so remember, input box, listing title. So this will be the first section where we are going to type the title of the listing. So if you want to know what the title looks like, this is the title right here. Okay, so this will be the title, and then this will be the listing itself. Okay, and this is all the information that we provided in list my property. Cool. Okay, so we're done with this. I am going to be building all this, right? We are going to be passing all this information. We will obtain the data because we're going to be using the DOM element, get element by ID. Okay, and then we will pass this onto the function. All right. So we got new listing title, and then this is the input box for the listing title. Then we have another for asking price, and then the asking price, and we are adding the span object, which is basically the $sign. And you can see it right here. This is what we are adding into the front end and the actual field. So if we go back, we have the field right here. This is the field. And we will be labeling this ID to be price. So then when we build the function to capture the text, we will invoke get element by ID and we will use price, okay? You might be wondering, how did I came up with that layer? And how did I do the the sizing and all that. By the way, this is literally, I am not by any means a front-end guy. I can defend myself, but it's not my strong point. All I have to do, I just go to Bootstrap. They have some predefined templates. I copy and modify them. Copy and paste, copy and paste. That's all I do, to be honest, okay? So I'm gonna show you real quick if you want to know a little bit more about. If you go to Bootstrap, you can go over examples, and then anything that you want to build from in the front end, then you can just copy and paste the objects and do so. So if, let's say we want to build, get this footer, right? You have the demos here, and then they are also providing you the examples. So if you want to download the examples, the example files will include the HTML. You just copy that section, whatever section you want. Okay, so you can actually do this. Like that's literally how I did the front end. Okay, now what I'm going to do, I am going to be adding all this, right? And then we will definitely add the section where we are going to ask for the property picture. So the user needs to provide the property picture, which we will add into the front page with every listing. Okay, so we got, all this right here. You can see it right here. Okay, all right, so let's continue. I am going to go, this is our new server. Let me go back. Cool. All right, so you already know all this. Now there's certain things that are tied to the function. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to remove the reference so then it doesn't error out and we can see at least the front end. Okay, so this is one of them. You can see here, this is to connect the update button, or in this case, the browse button to get the picture. So I'm going to just take this out of here. And once we build the function, we'll add it back. And then I am going to be providing, there we go. So we got the image, which is basically going to show the picture, and the onclick, that is to list the property. This is the button that will be at the bottom. Okay, cool. Let me save this file. And what I have to do, I have to enable Bootstrap. Okay, so we have just the listing page. Let me go and build Bootstrap real quick. I'm going to go to app.js, and this is how we are going to add the Bootstrap styling. So then the theme changes to Bootstrap. So I'm going to go here and let me go into replace all this. This is the CSS values for Bootstrap, and I'm actually going to just replace the defaults. And now we are also going to add the header. So I'm going to show you, and by the way, you can see that it's already complaining because we need to add some files. Let me show you the existing project. So we also have to do the header. So this header that you see right here, we're going to build this, but this has to be built in the app file. Cannot be built in any other file because ideally you want to see this header everywhere. So the header has to be shown everywhere in every single page. So in order for us to do that, I have to create the header in the app itself in this file. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. I'm gonna do it real quick. Just replace this with this. Okay, awesome. So you can see here listed and list my property. Those are the two options that we have on the far right. Okay, and now I am passing the component here. Okay, this is the actual rendered next site. Okay, so we're gonna Control S. Let's go back. Okay, let's provide those files. It's asking for styles. Let's go ahead and provide styles. So it's asking us for custom and heroes. So I got it right here. Paste. Cool. Awesome. So now it should not complain. Let's wait for this. And looking good. Okay, we can start seeing some stuff popping here. Okay, this, what you see is the default NextJS data, so we can strip that out. And I am also missing the picture, the logo. So in the working application, I'm gonna show you right now, you can see the logo right here, and then you can see it listed and list my property, okay? So what I have to do, I have to go under the picture folder and add my logos and everything, okay? We are also going to be adding this logo, my channel logo, and also adding this particular, which is basically the same as this, okay? So let's go back. I'm gonna go here and we are gonna go over the public folder and we can throw the pictures there, okay? And I'm going to take advantage at the icons. So we have a couple of icons for the listings. So if we go back to the listings, those icons, I got the icons from Font Awesome. Okay, so those are the free icons that I can use. So I got them, okay? So this will be SVG files. So let's go to public and go ahead and paste. Those are all the picture files. All right, cool. So now let me go back and see how that looks. And we are just going to refresh, and sure enough, let's get rid of all this text. This will be the default index page. Here we go. And we are just going to save. And I can effectively take this out because I'm not going to be using, this is just default stuff. I'm not going to use anything of that. If you go back now, it should be clean. Awesome, awesome, looking good, looking good. All right, awesome. Now what I have to do, let's build that list my property. So if I go back on my project and let's go to list, I should be able to, as a matter of fact, if everything goes well, I should be able to see list properties. Yeah, I should be able to. So let's go ahead and take a look. I'm going to open the browser and we are going to go over list my property. So as a matter of fact, if you want to know how to create those links or at least have those pages, if we go to app, I want to show you right now where I created that header. I literally use a template for Bootstrap and I just called this, the reference to the first section, which is listed. It's basically the front page. This will be just going straight to the index file, which is this one. And then if I want to go to list my property, I am going to reference list, which is this file right here. Okay, that's how you basically do the reference and do the linkable button, or in this case, the link to the page. So I'm going to go list my property, and sure enough, there you go. Awesome. So this is the property section that we are going to be working with. I don't see, oh, you know what? You don't see the Pinata logo because we have to be working with use state. Don't worry, we're going to be working on that. So ideally, if there's not been any uploads, I'm going to show you right now. If the user hasn't uploaded any pictures, I am going to be showing this default. The moment the user decides to upload a picture, then I will be changing this to the picture itself because I will already be sending that information to IPFS, so then I can render that information back, okay? So I will be displaying this here. Cool. I have to do the following. I am going to be building the Pinata function to send the information to IPFS, okay?